Debbie again, and today I'm just doing a quick video on sweet potato fries. I didn't even know I liked sweet potato fries because I made the mistake of buying the kind that you get in the store, and every time I made them, I just thought they were okay. And so many years go by, and people are like, "Oh, sweet potato fries are so delicious," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah." So one time the sweet potatoes were on sale for like 25 cents a pound at my local Meijer store. And I said, fine, I'm just going to home make some. I go through this spell where I'm trying to not get anything processed from the grocery store. So I said, perfect, let's make our own. And once I made them, then I'm like, okay, now I see why everybody loves sweet potato fries. Um, so basically, I like to make a whole lot ahead of time so that I can store them in the freezer, and I'll kind of show you that once we get to that point. But first, we'll peel them, and I just got 3 for now. I usually will buy a whole bunch at a time and spend, a good hour getting them all cut up and prepped, and then I freeze them on a tray, and then I will put them in a Ziploc bag for later in the freezer, so I can just kind of have single servings or multiple servings. I'm usually home most of the time for lunch, so it's a nice little thing for me to have that's healthy. I'm generally on and off on Weight Watchers, so this is a nice thing to have, kind of a bonus almost feels like, and it doesn't cost me any points. I know with the new plan, some people have to pay for their vegetable or their potatoes, but for me, potatoes are free, sweet potatoes being one of them. But even if you do have to use points for potatoes, it's not very high. I believe it's like 2 points. The only points that would count if your potatoes are free is if you use oil in the oven. I tend to spray them with cooking spray so that I don't have to count the points. Alright, so once we get them peeled, we'll rinse them off. Alright, so sweet potatoes are hard. A regular potato is not as hard as a sweet potato, so please be very careful when you're cutting, because it would be very easy to get hurt. The first time I made these, I have a cutter that I use to make my French fries, and I tried to put them through there, and yeah, I ended up just getting my sweet potato jammed in there. So I learned that it just takes a very sharp knife and patience. So generally what the size I like to have is about like this. Anything smaller usually ends up burning, and anything larger usually ends up taking too much time to get done. And I'm a hungry girl, so I want to have my food, 20 minutes or so, not 30 minutes. So again, time consuming, but I usually cut it in half, and then I cut it in half again, and then I make them as thin as I want them, and then I'll cut them the other direction. So basically I'll just do one, since this is kind of time consuming, and then I'll show you what I do, and then we'll bake some. Alright, so once I get them to the size I want, and I usually do a bunch of these at a time, I'll spread them out on parchment paper on a big cookie sheet. Now, if you're not planning on freezing them, then I would say you can skip this step and you'll see, we'll go ahead and bake some together because I do have some already prepared. But then I'll place these into the freezer and we'll allow them to freeze. So usually I let it go for a whole day. Like I'll not touch that tray for at least until the next day. But then they come out of the freezer all individually frozen. And then I throw them in a Ziploc bag. And then as you can see, they're all individual. So depending on how many people I'm feeding, I can just grab a handful or so. So to cook these from frozen, well, even frozen or fresh, I heat the oven to 450. I line my cookie sheet with parchment paper. And then I'm just feeding myself today, so just a handful. And I really like these. So I always find like, why didn't I make more after I've made them? And kind of spread them out. And then I'm going to use my cooking spray since I'm trying to watch my calories. And I will spray them. And then I turn them over and spray the other side. If you only spray one side, then it generally, one side tends to brown and the other side does not. And then I just sprinkle with salt. Now I have seen some recipes where people will coat them in cornstarch and they swear by it that it crisps them up and gives it like a different texture. Every time I've done that, I haven't really cared for it, so I kind of stopped doing that. I like it this way. I even have seen that they sprinkle with a little bit of sugar just to kind of give a caramelization. But I like sweet potatoes in their natural form, so I just bake them up just like this. So we'll put them in the oven. About 20 minutes, I'm going to check them, and then I'll show you what they look like then. Alright, so this is after about 12 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and turn them because if you notice, they've kind of got a little brown on one side, which is what I want to do. So we're going to turn them and then let them go the rest of the time, 8 minutes or so. And then we'll check them again. Alright, they're finally out of the oven. Just so you know how they're done, like you want them to be kind of crispy on the outside, and then the inside they're going to be soft. There is a fine line between brown and burnt, so definitely watch your oven because at 450 degrees, you know, that's a hot oven, so you could have fries easily burnt in that time.